exhibition game, and Michael's going through the motion. And Chuck Person, who's on my team, who's a trash talker as well, is like, can you believe Michael Jordan?
The lights are dim, the hardwood glows, and you can almost feel the pulse of the crowd that once filled this arena. Tonight, we look back at one of the most cold-blooded shooters the NBA has ever known, Reggie Miller. For nearly 2 decades, he lived for the noise, for the pressure, for those impossible moments when the entire world dared him to miss. But here's the twist behind that grin: behind every taunt and dagger three-pointer, was a man who deeply admired the greats who came before and after him. You see, Reggie Miller wasn't just a talker, he was a student of the game. Every smirk had a purpose. Every silence had meaning. And every legend he faced left a mark on his soul. He learned confidence from Larry Bird, fearlessness from Michael Jordan, joy from Magic Johnson, discipline from Kobe Bryant, and grace from Ray Allen. Together, they weren't just opponents, they were the blueprint of his greatness. At 59, Reggie doesn't talk about rivalries anymore. He talks about gratitude for the 5 men who shaped his game, his mind, and his love for basketball. This is not a story about hatred or revenge. This is about respect, legacy, and the quiet fire that kept Reggie Miller shooting when everyone else stopped believing. So, as we rewind the clock and step back into that golden age, one question echoes across the empty court: who inspired the sniper? Let's start with the man whose arrogance was pure art: Larry Bird. When Reggie Miller talks about Larry Bird, there's no hint of rivalry in his tone, only awe. Larry was different, he once said. He didn't talk to you, he talked through his game. To understand Reggie, you have to understand Bird, the original master of confidence without chaos. In the 80s, while Reggie was still learning how to build his rhythm, Larry Bird was redefining what it meant to win with quiet arrogance. Miller studied him the way a musician studies a melody. He watched Bird hit impossible shots, turn away before the ball even touched the net, and let the silence of the crowd say everything. When Bird later became his coach in Indiana, Reggie finally met the man who had shaped his mindset years before. Larry didn't motivate you with speeches, Reggie recalled. He just looked at you, that look that said, you know what to do. Under Bird, Miller learned the power of composure. He realized that the greatest weapon wasn't anger or trash talk, it was control. Bird's calm turned tension into theater, his confidence turned simplicity into art. Reggie adopted that same poise, that same lethal stillness before pulling the trigger from deep. To Reggie, Larry Bird wasn't just a legend, he was a mirror of everything he aspired to be: cold, precise, and quietly unshakable. Larry taught me, Reggie once admitted, that arrogance can be beautiful when it's earned. And after Bird, there was only one man who could match that energy, the fire that burned in red and black. The man who made Reggie fearless: Michael Jordan. When the name Michael Jordan comes up, Reggie Miller's expression changes. There's a flash of respect and maybe a hint of adrenaline, even after all these years. You didn't just play against Jordan, Reggie once said. You survived him. Every player in the league measured themselves by how they handled that number 23 in red and black. For Reggie, it was more than competition, it was a masterclass in intensity. Their clashes in the 90s were unforgettable, especially that night in the Eastern Conference Finals of 1998. Chicago versus Indiana. Jordan versus Miller. Every possession felt like a test of willpower. Jordan's glare, his posture, even the way he breathed on defense, it all screamed dominance. But Reggie didn't flinch. He stared right back, matching fire with ice. When he hit that turnaround 3 over MJ in the final seconds, it wasn't just a bucket, it was a statement: I belong here too. Still, behind every fierce battle, there was respect. Jordan made me better, Reggie admitted. He forced me to find another level, not just as a player, but as a competitor. Watching Jordan's work ethic up close taught him that greatness isn't about talent, it's about obsession, precision, and refusing to lose the same way twice. Even now, Reggie speaks of Jordan not as an enemy, but as the standard. He made me fearless, he said. Because if you could face Michael Jordan, you could face anyone. And after the fire came the light, the smile that made the game beautiful again. Next, we turn to the man who turned competition into joy, Magic Johnson. Before the tension of rivalries, before the noise of New York, there was joy, and that joy had a name: Magic Johnson. Reggie Miller often said that Magic was the first player who made basketball feel alive, like jazz on hardwood. He made you smile, even when you were trying to beat him, Reggie once recalled. He played the game the way we all dreamed of playing it. Long before Reggie became Indiana's sharpshooter, he was a college kid at UCLA, watching Magic turn the court into a stage. The no-look passes, the grin that disarmed defenders, the way he lifted his teammates, it all left an imprint. Magic showed that leadership didn't have to come with anger or ego. It could come with joy, trust, and confidence that spread like electricity through the team. Years later, when Reggie faced him in the pros, that same smile still hit a killer instinct. He'd laugh, then throw a pass that made you feel like an extra in his movie, Reggie joked. But underneath the humor, there was admiration. Magic made the impossible look effortless. And for Miller, that was the true art, to work so hard that grace looked natural. Magic reminded Reggie that even in the fiercest battles, there should be love for the craft. He taught me that basketball isn't just about scoring or winning, Reggie said. It's about making people believe in what they're watching. And after joy came fire, the relentless pursuit of perfection. Because the next player Reggie admired didn't just play the game, he lived it, breathed it, and demanded greatness every second, Kobe Bryant. When Reggie Miller speaks about Kobe Bryant, his voice slows down, the usual sharpness gives way to something softer, heavier. Kobe was cut from a different cloth, he once said. He didn't want to be good, he wanted to be untouchable. For Reggie, who had spent his entire career thriving under pressure, Kobe was the living embodiment of that obsession, a mirror of everything he once was, only younger, hungrier, and somehow fiercer. Their matchups in the early 2000s were electric. By then, Reggie was in the twilight of his career, and Kobe was rising fast, already carrying himself like a man chasing ghosts. Yet every time they shared the floor, there was mutual understanding. He came for my spot, Reggie said. And I respected that. Behind the trash talk and intensity, there was something pure, a passing of the torch between two perfectionists. One night in Los Angeles, after a game that went down to the wire, Kobe stopped Reggie in the tunnel. He looked him straight in the eye and said, "You taught me how to turn confidence into fire." Reggie never forgot that. To him, Kobe was proof that greatness doesn't fade, it evolves, it reincarnates in the next generation. Kobe reminded me of my own hunger, Reggie said quietly years later. He pushed me to keep chasing even when I had nothing left to prove. Their bond was built on mutual respect, a connection between two relentless spirits who understood that excellence demands sacrifice. And as Reggie looked to the new era of shooters, one name stood out, a player who carried his same quiet discipline and deadly calm. The next chapter belongs to Ray Allen. When Reggie Miller thinks of Ray Allen, a faint smile crosses his face, the kind only a veteran gives when he sees his legacy continued. Ray was the evolution, Reggie said once. He took what I did and made it smoother, quieter, deadlier. By the time Allen entered the league in the mid-90s, Miller was already known as the master of movement, the king of clutch threes. Yet even he couldn't help but admire the precision of this young guard from Connecticut who moved like clockwork and shot like poetry. Reggie remembers watching Ray warm up, the routine, the rhythm, the perfection in every release. You could feel his discipline, he said. Every motion had meaning. For Miller, that was the ultimate compliment. He saw in Ray the same devotion that once drove him to practice jumpers long after the lights went out in Indiana. They were built from the same silence shooters who didn't need to talk, only to let the net speak for them. When Ray surpassed Reggie's all-time three-point record, Reggie wasn't bitter. He was proud. He called the moment a continuation, not a replacement. Because in his eyes, greatness wasn't something you owned, it was something you passed on. Records fall, he said, but the work stays. Ray Allen became proof that Reggie's style, the screens, the footwork, the balance would live forever. He didn't copy me, Reggie reflected. He refined me. And as the years rolled on, Miller knew his story had come full circle, from admirer to mentor, from rival to legacy. Because in the end, love for the game isn't measured by numbers. It's measured by the players who keep your flame alive. Would you like me to continue with the conclusion in the same cinematic commentator style? When the crowd is gone and the lights fade, what remains for a man like Reggie Miller isn't the numbers or the records, it's the echoes of those who shaped his fire. Larry Bird gave him composure, Michael Jordan gave him fearlessness, Magic Johnson gave him joy, Kobe Bryant gave him obsession, and Ray Allen gave him continuity. Together, they formed the blueprint of a shooter, a competitor, and a believer in the art of the game. At 59, Reggie doesn't speak of rivalry anymore, he speaks of gratitude. He understands now that every great player stands on the shoulders of those who came before. You can't love this game without respecting the ones who made you better, he once said. His story isn't about the shots he made, it's about the lessons he kept. The silence before the release, the courage to take the shot, and the humility to pass it on. Because in basketball, admiration is the truest form of legacy. Which of these legends do you think inspired Reggie the most? Bird, Jordan, Magic, Kobe, or Ray?